Tell me about how you see this, obsession around founders, teams, people, types of people, even personality traits. Like there are now venture firms that are going pretty deep, and I guess Antler is one example, right, of companies that are, or venture firms that are going really emphasizing the people dimension and are trying to crack it, you know, if you can.
I mean, there's so many elements here. I guess to your question, it sounds like, I mean, we can focus on the people part of the founders. There's a whole people part of the like going through the process of building a company. So like as you scale, as you raise money, as you hire, as you build a team, as you sell, like all of those are functions of people skills. Then there's the founder piece, which, I mean, I'm still developing a lot of thoughts around this, and I'm sort of in a data collection mode. I have some soft opinions about things, but they can very easily be changed by data that I see. One of the thoughts I've had very recently is, you know, like being an entrepreneur used to be a very niche career, maybe even 10 years ago. Let's go 20 years ago. Like being an entrepreneur was like a very weird career move. It was seen as like incredibly, almost like untenably risky, because you had all these other great options at companies. And sort of the paradigm was, you know, you work, you make your pension, or you're a union member, and you put in your time, and then you retire, and you're sort of taken care of through life. And as that's kind of fallen apart in the US, that's no longer really a career option for a lot of people, for a number of reasons. One of the reasons I think that's true in the US is like the economy is moving way too fast for that to happen. So like our parents lived in a world where if you graduated college and you worked at Xerox out of college, it's fairly likely that Xerox would be around for 40 or 50 years. You know, it was an established, it took a long time for the economy to make big changes and for incumbents to fall and be replaced. And the internet, the financial infrastructures that we've created, the speed at which innovation is happening right now, the speed at which consumers are changing preferences right now, et cetera, that assumption is no longer like assuming a company will be around in 50 years is like pretty bold assumption. Things just change too fast. And so we all had to adapt to this new world. We're like, hey, you're going to have a lot more jobs than your parents had, probably. You're probably even going to switch careers because what you start off as may not even be a relevant career by the end of your career. Right. And that's a very new paradigm. So I think what has happened is one of the symptoms of that is like being an entrepreneur has become very in vogue. It's like a very cool career now. It's viewed much differently than it was before. And so one of the big obsessions with people is now that you've flooded the market with all of these people who want to be an entrepreneur, there are a lot more motivations for people wanting to be an entrepreneur. So I think the industry as a whole has had to try to respond and figure out, well, like, how do you sort out? Because being an entrepreneur is super duper hard. It's very glamorized. One of the reasons why I think entrepreneurship is so popular right now is it's very glamorized. It's just like amazing career option where you get to be your own boss and you like put in 5 years of really hard work and then you're a millionaire or a billionaire or whatever it is. And the reality is like that's like really poor availability bias of like, that's not the average outcome. It's not the median or the mean outcome of actually being an entrepreneur. And I think the financial side of investing in companies has had to come up with a lot of ways to figure out, yes, we want to back founders who want to be entrepreneurs and be passionate, but we also have to create systems that try to root through the motivations of like, why do you really want to do this? Are you in it for the long run? Are you doing it for the right reasons? Because I think there are right and there are wrong reasons to want to be an entrepreneur.
So I want to hear more about that, but I think just to pick up on another thing you said, it's not just the right or wrong reasons, which in and of themselves is of course true, but I mean, is being an entrepreneur actually a career? I mean, of course, you can choose to see it as a career, but a lot of successful entrepreneurs, even by default, right? If you get acquired, you sort of spend a little bit of time as an entrepreneur, a little bit of time in a larger company, and then maybe you do something else. I mean, is the serial entrepreneur in particular healthy to only want to start companies as your only mode?
I think so, but I'm biased. Like, I've never in my entire career worked for a company that had more than 500 people in it. And I've almost always came in at the ground level at Antler. What I enjoy is the beginning and the starting of a company. And so I do think it's a career. And I think over time, a serial entrepreneur will collect skills, they'll collect network, they'll collect reputation that will help continue their success as an entrepreneur to varying levels. But I do think it's a career path. I think my point, though, is like, it's not a career path for everybody.
So the way to explore that, I wanted to explore it in a personal level. Why do you think you are currently an entrepreneur? Like, what happened the first time you were entrepreneurial? What guided you into that? And then I guess it also ties into like, why are you now at Antler? Because if I look again at your path, I guess everybody's path is atypical. I mean, would you say that you did any amount of planning when you to sort of be where you are now?
No, I did I did probably below average amount of planning through my, I went to high school because you had to. I applied to one college, which is like, I applied to college which was far enough away from my house that I didn't have to see my parents all the time, was in North Carolina, so it was cheap, right? So I got in-state tuition. And then the final piece was like, Appalachian State is in the mountains, and so you can ski. And so for basically close to half the year, after class, you can go ski. And then during the summer, it's like perfect mountain weather, so you can golf and hang out. So like that.
So it was a lifestyle choice for you also.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That was the amount of planning that went into like me deciding where to go to college. And the lack of planning was like, if I didn't get into app, like I had no backup choices, just all in on that. And I think I wrote that in my application to school, just so they would like either take me seriously or like feel bad if they rejected me.
Interesting.
And then obviously like I moved. So the day I graduated college, I moved overseas. That was, I mean, I planned to move overseas. Every other step after that was unplanned, sort of on purpose. Like that was what was exciting to me, was like, I was just going to go over there and figure it out, like blank slate.
Sure. But I mean, overseas, you went to Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam.
Yeah. Well, that was part of it.
Overseas, it was like, for Americans means that you go to London and Paris. So, I mean, you didn't follow the script.
Yeah, it was like maximize adventure. And like part of adventure to me is like, there's not really a plan. There's a sense of like what you want to accomplish over there, but there's not this like step-by-step itinerary plan. I'm not great. For example, it's Thursday today. I've got no idea what I'm doing this weekend. Like I'm not a planner. I'm really bad at planning. I like write down stuff all the time and then just like lose a piece of paper. And I'm like,
but do you think planning skills then not fundamental for an entrepreneur? So I'm just thinking about, even if you're just thinking about founders, right? So we were talking about people, and there's this trend of focusing more on the people aspect in VC, both for selecting and in terms of what we're helping them with. Yeah. But planning, you're saying, for you hasn't been fundamental. How do you cope with that? If it's really true that you're not a planner, do you have systems or people around you that are much better at that? And is that how you address it?
Yeah. Two things. One is I've had to learn how to plan when it's appropriate. So I think there is this sense of like, especially with startups, especially with early stage startups, like you see a founder and you meet them and they have this like 5-year plan. And the first thing I always think is like, this is bullshit. Like this is not how there's no way to know how this is going to go. And if your confidence in this working is on this like PowerPoint plan that you've put together, like it's misplaced. But at the same time, there are realities of running a company where you do have to plan, right? And I run an investment fund. I manage people's money. Like I've had to learn how to plan around a business and be responsible and understand how to build that structure and how to, I can't live my life like as willy-nilly as I did in my 20s with the amount of responsibility that I have now. So I have had to learn that. I've also learned to surround myself with people who are very, very good at that. And so there are a few people on my team who are like the most meticulous, detail-oriented people on the planet. And we work so well together because they know, hey, when it comes to the details, like, you have full autonomy and you tell me what you need and how we're going to do this. When it comes to the high level, et cetera, I'll always be there making sure we know which direction we're heading. And so, like, figuring out that balance. And so as it's relevant to a founder, I think, like, learning what you're very strong at and then being able to surround yourself with people who complement those softer spots. To me, in my experience, it has been incredible for my career progression and sort of my maturity.